enforcement agency. What jumps out at me, and I've just been skimming through it as well because it's new and within the last 10 minutes, is how he talks about he learned that he had been terminated at the FBI after 21 years, not from the Department of Justice, not from the FBI, but he says third hand from a friend of his who saw the news breaking on one of the cable networks. And I want to draw your attention to this one section. He says, so after 2 decades of public service, I found out that I had been fired in the most disembodied, impersonal way, third hand, based on a news account. He goes on to criticize the president pretty openly in this op-ed. He says that he woke up the following morning, March 17th, to find the president was celebrating his termination. And he called that, I'm reading from again, unhinged public attacks on me that would continue into my life after my service to the FBI. President Trump's cruelty reminded me of the days immediately following the firing of James Comey, his old boss, the head of the FBI. On this lack of candor question, Martha, his explanation for what happened, there has to be more to it for the Justice Department and the FBI and their Internal Affairs Division to have terminated him for cause. And I think it's worth reminding people that when the former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn was fired, what those close to him told reporters is that he also was kind of caught up in the confusion and the chaos of the new administration, and he didn't remember the sequencing of events that well from his phone calls with the Russians, yet he still was prosecuted and pled guilty to lying to federal agents. So it's a very similar story, and in this case, McCabe is asking us to believe that this was an honest mistake and that he should not have been punished for that, Martha.
I mean, it's a great point, Catherine, because it's impossible to completely separate those two things. It appears that when you're dealing with internal investigations within the Department of Justice, lack of candor is the term that is used in this other case for lying to the FBI. And everyone knows that you can't lie when you are being questioned by the FBI. And as you also, I think, rightly highlight, this was an internal investigation. He is responding to how the president responded, and clearly a lot of people have said that the firing could have been handled much better. But the reality of it is, in terms of how this works, that it was an internal Department of Justice investigation that led to him first being sidelined and then ultimately fired, correct?
Yes, and what I find extraordinary is that he has published this piece in the Washington Post, and this is coming just about 48 hours after his old boss, FBI Director Christopher Wray, told NBC News that the termination of Andrew McCabe was totally by the book and by the regulations. So this op-ed on its face is really challenging the version of events that was presented by Wray earlier this week.
Just one last question for you, Catherine, because I want people to understand, what he was accused of. What are the things that surfaced in that report that forced his resignation, his stepping aside, and then ultimately his firing?
Okay, so the Inspector General was charged with looking at the handling of the Clinton email case by the FBI and the Justice Department, and they also looked at media leaks. In this particular case, there was a conversation with a reporter at the Wall Street Journal in October of 2016, and that's kind of where there are different views on what happened. McCabe says he was within his rights to talk to that reporter about the Clinton email investigation and the Foundation investigation, and that he had the approval from his top boss at that time, FBI Director James Comey. But if you read the Attorney General's statement very closely, what you'll see is that the language does suggest that there were other occasions that McCabe appeared to lack candor in their conversations with the IG. So based on my reading of the statement and just what I've learned through my reporting, I don't think it's limited to this one episode of the media leak in October of 2016. I think basically there's more to it.
All right. Catherine, thank you so much.
You're
Glad
welcome.
to have you here tonight.
Sure.